Hey everybody, Brady here, also known in some crazy corners of the internet as the War Hamster. Joining you for another episode of the what I call the Grassroots Spotlight, where I talk to people from all around the country who are lovers of liberty and freedom, just trying to do something to make their own communities a little bit better. And joining me today is a good friend, Dennis Pratt, from the great state of New Hamstershire. How you doing, Dennis?
How you doing, Brady? Thank you very much for inviting me.
I've been looking forward to this. We'll get into a little bit about who you are and why the heck I thought you'd be an interesting guest. But Dennis and I know each other in person here in New Hampshire. He's been out here longer than I have. I got here, it took me about a year and a half to 2 years to find what's known as the Free State Project, even though I knew all about them from my libertarian days in San Diego. So that's my fault. But Dennis is one of the leaders, and I just think he's got a fascinating story, and you guys are going to love hearing what he's got to say. So with no further ado,
Was that day that I met you at the restaurant, your first day with the going to a Free State Project event?
No, I've been to a few before that.
Okay.
Here in Portsmouth, there's a little bit of there's some patriotic fervor. Some guys who get together down at the park. A guy by the name of Mark at the park, and so I met some people that are more, probably more the MAGA crowd than the Free State Project. But then I think my wife found, who you know, of course,
and love, by the way,
my better half. And you have a wonderful wife as well, so we can trade compliments. I'd been to a few of the Thursday night meetups. My wife found that, and then I just started, people started, but I guess probably a month or two into going to those, you and I ran into each other, and I don't think either one of us shut up for an hour. So,
yeah, well, we have like 300 different groups here in the Free State. Everything from political groups, we have several of them, to just people hanging out and going out for beers together or for food. There's a lot of hobby groups that we have that are liberty based groups. So I'm really surprised that it took you that long to find us, especially given how many groups we have and how many liberty people we have here. I do know that that you bridge the gap between the conservatives and the libertarians. You're in that kind of maybe in that paleo libertarian slot. I'm not too sure how you call yourself. But we have, I think right now since COVID, I think we were more left-leaning libertarian before COVID, and then COVID basically drove so many of the left libertarians underground, and the right libertarians basically took all the empty spaces. We were having large events at the Shell, which is one of our community centers. We have 7 or 8 different liberty community centers spread out through our small little state. I want your viewers to think how many liberty community centers they have in their states, which are going to be larger than our state. And we have 7 or 8, depending on how you count, and another one's coming online pretty soon. We have all these different events there, but we also just have this myriad of groups around hobbies. We have, I don't know how many shooting groups and groups around homeschooling and groups around sound money and crypto and gold and silver. We have a group around silver.
They're doing pretty well right about now.
Whatever your interest is, even just in parenting. But so much of the parenting, we have different parenting groups and different styles of parenting groups. So it's really a smorgasbord of groups. And so I'm so surprised that it took you a year and a half to bump into us I guess it was in Dover that I met you.
Probably.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I've been a little busy, doing things like, I don't know, getting married, losing both my parents, running 3 businesses, etc. Yeah. Not to mention dealing with a lot of national issues. But no, I am very glad I found the group, and I've met some pretty good friends in a short amount of time. And that's what we want to talk about, is what the Free State Project's all about. For those who don't know, again, I was pretty active in the Libertarian Party more than a decade ago in San Diego. I don't like party politics at all. I found the party part of it to be about as useless as the GOP or the DNC. But I'm definitely a small L libertarian. Limited government is my mantra. My right-left spectrum is far left is 100% government, far right is anarchy. I want to be as far right as I can and still maintain order, which is exactly what the founding fathers kind of tried to give us, and we managed to screw that up. But I've been so impressed with the Free State Project and Lovers of Liberty out here in New Hampshire, and it's amazing what can be done with real activism in a small state. So before we jump into the Free State Project, just to give us a quick minute or so on your background, how you got involved, what are your values, what are you trying to accomplish, and then we'll just go from there.
Well, I'm one of the older members of the Free State Project. I came out of the anti-war movement in the 60s and 70s. My brother went into the Army, and I think it was 64, 65, and he was supposed to be going to Vietnam. And I remember just so distinctly him coming into I think it was second grade. I'm pretty sure it was second grade classroom, and he was all decked out in his uniform, and he was leaving, and I just wept for probably a half hour, and I was so sure he was going to die. That had a profound impact on me. So, as I grew up, I was looking for, how do we stop these endless wars? And I actually can't come to liberty from the left, because that was the one that was the most outraged about the wars in that time. And I worked with a kind of an arch conservative, and we both respected each other because we both could think really super well. It was a startup situation. I was his first employee. He respected me that much, even though he knew that I was kind of far left. And we would argue just on breaks in between coding, and we would just start arguing about this and that political thing. And after about 9 months of good, sincere give and take, where each of us would say, oh, yeah, you're kind of right about that. And then we'd have to, we'd go back to coding, but be thinking about, what the point was. We actually came to this consistent theory. And, it was really just from that give and take, that battle every single day. And I remember very distinctly, it was around 11 o'clock. I was looking for a way to take a break. We were coding 7 days a week. And so I was looking for a way to take a break. I was going through all of our typical issues that we fight about. And I couldn't find one. And I just turned to him. I said, so is that it? We don't have anything else to argue about? And he kind of about 45 minutes later, he said, no, I can't think of anything else. So,
it's one of the things I always say is, the 60s liberals, which you call the left, they actually had liberal values. My mom was one, and she had very liberal values. She believed in things like real free speech, not censorship, and individual liberty. Today's air quote liberal is about as the opposite of that as you can imagine. That's why we fight with labels when we talk about politics. And labels are a big problem, and the media tries to bifurcate us into this right versus left paradigm. And human interaction is so much more complex than try to do it two-dimensionally. Really dumbs down and gets us into our tribalist mindset. So that story you just told is a perfect example of you should lead with your values when it comes to politics, and not with your label.
Yeah, well, I was very pro. I own my own body, therefore I may do with it as I choose, and anti-war. Why are we adventuring and sending people out to get murdered and maimed for I don't know what the heck? For me it was Vietnam, but I think we've had plenty of experiences for adventurism that kills good men, and for very little return, for no return. It's just extraordinary. We're going to be paying the price for this, not just in the lost souls and the damage, the wounded, but the amount of money that has been wasted. And he was, and I was also anti-capitalist. I thought, I saw the left as being my salvation, against these wars. And so, I pushed back on his on his kind of pro-war and his pro-interventionism and personal freedom, and he pushed back on my socialism side, and we kind of came to this conclusion that it was just amazing. And I remember it because I would go back to my wife, and we were just married. We're celebrating our 45th wedding anniversary now. We were just married, and I go back and I started complaining. She married the socialist. I started complaining about my boss and how terrible he was. And then I say, but he does have a point about this and that. And my wife would be really nervous, and she'd get so nervous. And because she came from a very progressive family, and I was kind of her prize to that family because I was just so much further left than they. And then she's like thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to disown me." Because he's thinking about these things. And it wasn't until it was about 6 months later. I was on a Chicago bus, going around the loop, and it was winter time, and there's this snow on the floor of the bus, and it was sloshing back and forth, and I was just waiting for my stop, watching the icebergs go by, and a piece of paper was going over a piece of paper, and I started reading it kind of sideways, and I picked it up. It was dripping, and I jumped out of the bus, and I ran to a payphone, and I called up my friend, my boss, and I said, "I know what we are. There's a word for what we are. We're libertarians." So that was my introduction. That was 1981, and I spent so much time in the Libertarian Party, and just got totally burned out. By the 90s, I was totally burned out with that. And I was looking for alternative ways of trying to get people to freedom. I thought schooling would be a major thing. I got really into schooling. There are a number of other things that I thought that would be levers to get the normies to start thinking about these things. Because what I didn't realize was my boss, he could actually think clearly and without so much ego, that he could kind of go, "Oh, that's a good point. Let me think about that." And the next day he'd come back and go, "Well, what about this?" And we would debate these things. And we had actually come to this consistent theory where both of us give and take. That's such a rare. I'm kind of disappointed because I had that experience. It's so profound. It did take 9 months, right? But I don't find personalities like that generally. I don't find people who are really bright, really creative, really able to think outside the box, and really willing to take new ideas and not just shut down on them. And that was actually what allowed the two of us to come to this theory that I found out way later that there was this whole body of literature on it, and there were all these people on it, and there was a Libertarian Party, which I kind of reject. I mean, I have looked for liberty now for for almost 45 years, and how to actually create liberty. And what I've found, I actually have an overview of all the ways that people have tried to get to liberty. It includes 25 different themes and different things, including electoral, within the party, the Democrat and Republican, including third party, and including monetary programs, getting out of the system, and really the only strategy that seems to be working, and this is after all these decades of trying to wrest the United States back to a liberty perspective, the only strategy that seems to be working is this idea that what we do is we concentrate. The people who love liberty, they go, God bless the rest of you. I know you hate liberty. That's okay. You guys hate liberty over there. We're actually going to be over here, and we're going to be doing all these terrible liberty things that you think we shouldn't be doing. And that's okay though, because we're over here and we're not going to bother you, right? So we're just going to separate from you guys. And it's attracted thousands and thousands of liberty-loving people to move to New Hampshire. And as you know, and of course, the people who move here are also the most driven people, right? It's one thing to sit back in your chair and go, I'm going to be grumpy and just complain about everything, and this is the United States is going into the junk pile. This is so horrible. That's one thing. Most people will be doing that. It's a totally different thing to say, and I think there's actually a way that we can create liberty in our lifetime, not for these people who are brainwashed since birth and do not have the intelligence to think that they could actually be free men and free women, but for the few people who do think that, and the few people who dream of that, we can actually create a liberty society for them. And that's what New Hampshire is. That's what we're building in New Hampshire.
That's the Free State Project.
That's the Free State Project, yes.
Get enough liberty lovers, work within the guise of the existing Republican infrastructure, and make some serious changes back towards liberty in the state. And I say this every time I talk to any of the people in our group, is I'm just so impressed with what you've accomplished. And it's a pretty short amount of time to have made, this really is the freest state. I come from Southern California. I lived under Governor Gavin Newsom during the lockdowns. I know what the alternative is. And there's more libertarians in California than any other state. So if you guys are listening to this, or just a MAGA conservative who wants to get somebody's boot off your neck, you ought to come out and check out what's going on here, because it's pretty impressive. And if it wasn't for the darn weather, I'd say I was going to stay here for my entire life, but still getting used to that.
Well, layers, my friend, will save you. I grew up in New York City. I went to undergraduate in Chicago, which is freezing cold. Did some grad work in Colorado. Did more grad work at MIT in Massachusetts, and so I'm used to cold weather. I appreciate you guys who come up from the warmer climes, and I keep on trying to explain. All you really need is, multiple layers, right? Multiple layers. You get 3 or 4 layers and you're nice and toasty. You get a nice warm scarf to seal off your jacket. You get maybe gloves if the wind's really bad, a good hat, and you're good to go. And of course we have great winter sports here. But the thing that we have that no one else has is liberty. And we have liberty where California can't possibly hope to ever get it, because you're totally outnumbered. There are so few people who actually love liberty. And we're just congregating those, and as a matter of fact, the ones who love it so much that they'll actually move in New Hampshire. And so we're the #1 most liberty state in the country by far. So we have, there's a study called Freedom in the 50 States, and it looks at 236 different variables of liberty. And New Hampshire has been #1 for decades. I think we lost our #1 spot one year to Wyoming, if my memory is correct. But then we regained it, and we have been increasing the distance on these liberty scales from all the other states. And now that we're actually in the House and the Senate, we are increasing the amount of liberty even more. So if liberty is something that you love, I highly recommend. Yep, there we are. That one.
Number one. And I came from number 48. Here we have Florida at number 2. That's not too bad.
Yeah, but we're pretty far away from Florida. I mean, I think Florida is not too bad. It's just that it's something like 17 times the population of New Hampshire. So Liberty people tend to be a very small percentage of the population. The people who really, really love liberty, they who believe I own my own body and I should not be the slave to some master. As long as I'm not stealing from other people, as long as I'm not hurting other people, I should not be enslaved to them. Now, I can give charity, I can serve other people, and that is a blessing. That's something that we do as a good act. But I do not. We reject doing that as a form of compulsion, as a form of you either do this or we'll put you in jail, or we'll take all your stuff, and if you resist, we'll put you in jail, and if you resist, we'll kill you. So that's the part that we reject. That whole thing that starts off with you must do this to we'll kill you if you don't. We kind of reject. We do good acts out of the goodness of our heart, to live a good life, to be a good man, and you see that in the Free State. We do have people here who are more, how should I say, kind of the Randian, objectivist type, who are they totally reject all good acts, and they think it's kind of a bastardization of that, and that's not the predominant Free Stater. I mean, it's a really amazing because we're so community oriented that our neighbors really love us, and they kind of go, oh my God, this person's helping out in this and helping out with that, because we believe that's how we do charity. That's how we do good service. That's how we act as good men and women. We don't act as good men and women by enslaving someone. We act as good men and women by us proactively leading and taking action on our own. And so we're actually, we organize pickups, park pickups and things like that. It's actually funny. One of the first things that some of the Free Staters did when they first moved here, the Free State movement is I don't know. You could say it's almost 25 years old when they first announced it, but you could also say it's 10 years old. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary of triggering the move to New Hampshire in 2 weeks from now. We'll be having a party in New Hampshire. It's just celebrating that. All the porcupines can get together, or a small subset will get together and celebrate actually triggering the move. But what happened was, early on, the people who came, they said, I'm not waiting for everyone to sign up and then trigger the move. I'm going to go ahead and move and start this thing. So these were the hardest core of the hardest core. And what they did was they did this thing that you'll love. They called it open carry litter pickup. And they would go into progressive towns, okay, and they would just pick up trash off the street. And of course, the progressives would see these armed people in the street, and they would freak out, and they'd call the police, and the sirens would come, and the police would show up, and they'd pull out their guns, and we'd say, well, we're here, we're picking up trash, and we have the absolute right to bear arms. We're depending on how you count, we are the number 1, number 2, or number 3 top state in terms of the right to protect yourself. We just got rid of laws against brass knuckles, and what was the other thing that was? People are going, how far are we going to go? And the point is, why are people telling us what we can buy and what we can't buy, and what we can defend ourselves and what we can't defend ourselves?
Well, it's one of the funny things you say. Yeah, New Hampshire's absolutely got some of the best gun laws on the books. And just to get my constitutional argument out of the way with something I always hammer home, the Second Amendment addresses the federal government shall not infringe. State gun laws are constitutional. The trend in America has been for more and more states to get better and better with these laws, but New Hampshire is leading the way. And you look at the map we had up there before, tiny little New Hampshire surrounded by all these blue cities. I got maps that show how much higher their tax rates are, how much higher their cost of living is. You saw the Liberty rankings we just showed you. They're all in the 30s or higher. We're number 1. And it's really kind of neat to be in an island oasis in the middle of this. I mean, we cross state lines, and you're in a whole other world. So
I don't cross state lines anymore. I try not to cross state lines. I'm actually pretty close to a state line, but my wife has to give me 3-day notice if we're actually going to cross into Maine.
yeah,
We border Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts, and I just refuse to cross over into there unless I have to kind of prepare myself. Now that's I living in like these progressive hellholes for most of my life, but I'm just like so done with it. I spent 50, 60 years living like that and living in that oppression. And I don't think people understand what it's like to live as a free man because you've not experienced it. For me, it was actually lifting a weight off of my chest. I actually was able to breathe more freely. And I was going, why am I able to breathe more? Because I didn't feel like this kind of overarching oppression on top of me. I felt like I was a free man for the first time. Now, does that mean that we're fully free? No. There are we have the legislature has just gone into session, and all of our liberty reps are going, okay, we're going to work on this bill. We're going to work on this bill because they have interlaced all of these laws over and over and over. I mean, we thought that we were the number one state on guns, for example, on the right to bear arms, on the right to protect your body and the bodies of your family and the bodies of your neighbors, right? That's what gun rights are. It's not gun rights, it's the right to protect yourself. Sorry, I got off there. But we thought we were number one. We thought New Hampshire was number one, and we were lauded when we actually were rated number one. And then someone found out that there was some obscure law on the fish and game thing that if you're riding a snowmobile, you can't be carrying a gun. So we got our legislators to run in there, and we had the big fight. We're always fighting the progressives. They're always losing, though. And we're fighting them, and we got that one repealed. And that's the problem, is that we have, New Hampshire's a very old state, and so you see these layers and layers and layers of laws that you remove one law and then you go, oh wait, did you know about this law? There's this law. You move that law. Oh my goodness, you forgot about this. And so we're peeling the onions layer by layer by layer. But I wish I'd given you another map of the states. There's a map of the states on freedom indexes, on the freedom index, on personal freedom, on economic freedom. And we are in this quadrant, just all by ourselves. Now, Florida is down here, kind of more, closer to the 0 point for personal freedoms. But New Hampshire is really in that libertarian quadrant all alone. And we're actually moving further out than anyone's moved, since, I don't know, 17 something. We're actually moving further out as we speak, even as so many of the other states are moving further towards that authoritarian side, whether it's going down on personal freedom or going down on economic freedom. And that's really a large part because we free staters are reinforcements to the people who love liberty here, which right now happens to be the Republican Party. We're ejecting a lot of the freedom haters in the Republican Party and replacing them with good liberty people.
Yeah, let's talk about that. This is from Newsweek, so I'm guessing the methodology is slightly flawed, but it's got New Hampshire here at number 4. It's got California at 11, so we know this is a joke, so I'm just going to get rid of this map right away. But okay, so let's talk about that real quick.
That must be freedom to tax. I mean, you talked about taxes. I want you to think, the viewer, how much do you get taxed by your state in terms of sales tax? I mean, God forbid that you have an income tax. I guess some states do have income taxes.
12% in California.
Just think of how much you get taxed there. We're zero. We're 0% tax on income, 0% tax on sales. So, I mean, just in terms of the amount of freedom there that you can experience, and that's just a drop in the bucket on what we have, and especially on what we're producing here.
Yeah, well, let's segue into kind of the structure of New Hampshire, because it's a very unique legislature. And remember, this is one of the original 13 colonies, and does have the oldest constitution. The very first signed constitution was New Hampshire. But there's some very unique things about this state and the legislature. And the reason we've been able to get so much done is we have 400 state legislators in the House, and this is we've got the lowest population per representative in a state legislature anywhere in the country, which means you actually do have local representation. You do have self-determination, and you can actually talk to the people, and they actually get things done. It's the beauty of what you can do in a small state. And I wasn't aware of it until I got here and started hearing these tales and reading everything that has been done. But do you want to talk about just what's unique about it here and why? And
this was something that I think that a couple people thought about when we chose the state to create the free state in. A few people were wise enough to understand, but most of us just didn't understand the impact that this would have. That, to get into the House of Representatives, you're basically representing something like 3,600 to 4,000 people. That's enough people, enough households that you can go and visit people and talk to them when you're running. If you come here, we can get you into office. We can put you into a district that needs a good Liberty Republican. And we can tell you how to actually do this. You get someone to drive you and keep notes, and they take you to the different houses, and you just go in there and introduce yourselves. And it's a very simple process. You talk about liberty values, constitutional values, being left alone. These are all things that are very strong kind of New Hampshire first types of propositions already, and they resonate with us. New Hampshire was going like all the other states, was heading towards that progressive authoritarian direction. What happened in New Hampshire was that all these liberty people started migrating in, and all of a sudden New Hampshire stopped migrating with the rest of the states and started moving away, and that's why we have such a big gap. And we can put good liberty people. If anyone's a politician, I mean, I'm not a politician. I'm terrible. I'm more of a theoretician. I'm a MIT nerd, so I'm just terrible in politics. I actually speak truth. You have to couch things, and I speak very bluntly. But if you have any of those skills, my God, we can put you into office. You should come, stay at my inn, talk to the different people, find which towns are looking for good liberty Republicans to run, and we can get you in there. You will have to do some leather work. You will have to walk around and meet your neighbors, talk to people, get support. But if you do that on a just a grassroots level, meeting the people, talking to them about the values of New Hampshire and being left alone and living your own lives and serving your family and your friends and serving your community, but serving your community by your choice, not because you're forced to fund some type of thing that is absolutely terrible for people. That if you actually do that, we can probably get you into office. We have just such a good track record of doing that. And that's really how we're moving the state more and more and more over into that liberty quadrant. That's something that you can't do in Florida, because Florida, I don't know how many people it is per representative, but it's not 3,000, 4,000. It's nowhere near that. You cannot meet. You actually have to have a lot of money. And what that means is that the cronies come in and they buy those seats by giving the campaign contributions. And so actually getting into office there isn't by leather work, by passion, by argumentation, by logic. It is by money, and that you are bought and paid for by the special interest. So, we just don't have enough people to, and you can't really affect the legislature like you can. I'm so glad that there are other places for liberty-minded people, especially Florida. If you don't mind, if you're not really all that concerned about personal freedom, I think Florida works really well. It's certainly up there. It is ranked number 2 in the Cato Index, and I think there are other states that are kind of in that liberty quadrant. The states more on the left side, more kind of personal freedom, but less economic freedom. I would assume your group is more interested in the economic side of that, which is fine. But I'm kind of more of that libertarian. I believe in both personal freedom. I should be able to do to my body, with my body, as I choose, not as the state chooses. For example, COVID shots, right? That was just such a great example here, where we voted for our governor. He promised on the campaign that he would not do any lockdown. And it was like a week after he got into office that he did lockdowns. Now, he made it very open. He said, "Oh, I'm going to lock down," but then he made it so open. We were locked down in November, early November of 2000. On the 3rd week of November, we had a bunch of libertarian New York City comedians come up, because they had been locked down right from the get-go in New York City. It was terrible. And they came up, and they came to one of our Liberty clubhouses, and we had 70 Liberty people there, there for the concert. We're locked down nominally, right? New York is locked, and they walk in, they go, "What the heck is going on here? How?" And of course, half of us are armed, so they're going, we've gone into this like no man, we don't know where we are. And I think it is a little bit disorienting to people who are so used to being the slave to government, to come to a burgeoning liberty homeland like we have here in New Hampshire. So I invite you to come and visit for sure.
On that note, we got to get the commercial out there right now, because you mentioned your hotel, and one of the things that Dennis and his wife do is, they run the Independence Inn. Give us a background on that, and if you want to come check out New Hampshire, you can look up the Independence Inn, stay there, meet a bunch of people. Dennis will help you with your itinerary, make sure you meet everyone you need to meet. And we'll just go ahead. You do the commercial better than I do, so go for it.
Yeah, so a lot of times what happens with the Free Staters is somebody will say, "What is happening? I noticed this new bill in New Hampshire. So what is happening?" And the Free Stater will say, "Yeah, well, we were the most liberty, and therefore you ought to move. And when are you going to move?" And it's such a turnoff. I mean, I visited New Hampshire 3 times before I decided I've just got to move here. And so what we did about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, was we bought a small inn called and changed the name to the Independence Inn. Wink, wink, nod, nod. In the center of about 60% of the Free State activity. And the idea was that this would be a way station for liberty-oriented people, liberty-curious people, to come and stay at this inn. And then each day you head in a different direction. And you go and visit this liberty group, and you go and visit this liberty group, and you do this liberty event, and you meet with these liberty people, and you go to a homeschooling group, and you go to a shoot, and you go to a ski trip or a skating thing, or and so the idea was you have to actually experience this, because I'm telling you, if you live in California, you do not know what it's like to live at this level of freedom, and you don't understand how rapidly we're moving towards even greater freedom. So we give gigantic discounts to people to come, 50% off if you stay a week. But we also give day discounts. I don't recommend that you come for a day. You cannot visit the myriad of groups and different types of liberty activities in a day. So I recommend at least a week. So we give half price off for people who stay a week. We give 2/3 off if you stay a month, and a lot of people will do that because they actually have come already for the week, and they go, yeah, I'm gonna come back. I don't really know where I'm going to be working. I don't know where I'm going to be living, but I'm coming back and I'm going to find that out. So that's kind of this way of being able to really set your ideas of where you want to move to and find your home and find your job and things like that. So that's what the month deal is. But the week deal is really what I recommend. I call it a porcupine vacation. We call ourselves porcupines because it's a creature that doesn't really attack anyone. It doesn't bother anyone, but you don't want to attack it. You don't want to bother it. But before you do that, you should contact me, because I'm the one who will give you the discount, first of all. And secondly, I'm going to put you into a group, or probably more than one group, where you can talk about your particular affinity interest, your affinity group interest. So you might, for example, be somebody who's really into gaming. And we have several gaming groups. So we want to introduce you to the gamers, and so that when you come, maybe you go to Concord and play some games with that group, or go up to the Lakes region and play some games with that group. If you're a shooter, you want to go out and shoot. If you're into Bitcoin, well, we have Bitcoin groups. We have the longest running Bitcoin meetup in the country. I don't know if it's in the world, but certainly in the country. So you want to go to the Bitcoin meetups, and so we'll introduce you to those guys, and you can go and meet up with them. And you can use Bitcoin to buy your products and there. Maybe you're into gold. Maybe you're into homeschooling. So we're going to put you in touch with homeschoolers, and you can go and see the different homeschooling pods and the alternative schools that are cropping up and we're building, and hear about how we are wresting more and more control away from the state schools and more into family decisions about how they went to school, whether that's religious schooling or whether that's schooling, homeschooling or group schooling. So whatever your interest is, you want to contact me. I'll give you the big discounts, but I'll also put you in touch with people who share your affinity. And you can talk to them and set up meetings. That's what I highly recommend. We had one guy who came, I think in December, early December, and he probably was. He's my archetypical visitor, because before he came, he had every single day mapped out. I'm going to go here. I'm going to visit with these people, and he had appointments. And I'm going, why not do that? Because we want you guys to move here. We need more people to take over the state. We're not satisfied. We're doing really a good job, but remember, we move from the bottom up. So most people think, oh, well, you take over by capturing the governor's office, you capture the president, and that's not what the Free State Project is. It's a bottom-up movement where we change the population, and then from that we creep up into the political power. And so we have 1/4 of the state house. We have 3 out of 27, so 1/7 of the 1/9 of the state Senate already, and we're slowly moving up into the power structures of the politics. But to do that, we need more people. We need people who run, but especially people who vote and who will do. I mean, if you're not actually going to run, well, maybe you could be the guy driving the person who is running around and keeping track. Okay, we hit that house. We want to go back to this house here, and just keep track and serve him. And that's how we win. That's how we're winning. That's how we're going to win even more bigly. And the more bigly you can come out and help us win, the happier we'll be.
Very good. Yeah. And I've seen it. I see this happening real time, and we got a calendar, a couple of calendars, but there's almost something to do almost every, close to every single day of the month. Regularly scheduled meetups. One of Dennis's big ones is the Build Don't Bitch, and other events he has at the Independence Inn on Mondays. But it's a pretty full calendar. So you don't have to know anybody here before you get here, because you're going to make a lot of friends pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the big scares that people have, is that they think, I'm going to move there and I'm not going to know anyone. I won't have any network. And it's just the opposite. And that's one of the reasons why I bought the inn, and really are serving those early to New Hampshire first-time visitors by putting them into the inn and then connecting them with their affinity groups. Right? Because now all of a sudden they go, oh, geez, I just had great time playing these games with these people, and going hunting with these people, and going skiing with these people, and going hiking with these folks, and sailing with these folks. And you actually now these people, who they are, what type of people they are. Remember, these are libertarian people. These are people who, as a core principle, will not aggress against you. So all of your friends in your state, who are not liberty people, they are planning on aggressing against you. Now, of course, they'll be very nice about it. And I just think he's a better candidate. But those are aggressions. They are planning on enslaving you. And the people here actually believe that you own you. That you are the sole owner of your body and your life, and that it is up to you, given your conscience and your connections and your willingness to be a good person, in your communities, right? We all are members of communities, but to support your communities bottom up, that's how you actually form real lasting communities where people trust each other and care about each other. And it's not this top-down government imposition. It's bottom up. And so the Free State Project, like I said, it's 1 out of 25. It's an example of 1 out of 25 of this idea that what we're going to do is concentrate liberty lovers in one area. It's the most successful one in the most successful category. And I highly recommend that you don't think about, oh, well, maybe I'll move here, because you don't know anything, right? What the heck? You just listen to some guy on a podcast. Don't listen to me. Come out and visit. The inn is really cute. You'll have a great time there. The innkeepers are free staters. All the owners are free staters. We have every Monday, we have the Monday manumissions, which a manumission is a script that freed you from slavery. If you did a good deed for your master, he would give you a manumission. That's why we call it Monday manumissions. I actually did it on Mondays, because Mondays are where a lot of the groups have internal meetings. And so we didn't have a lot of events for visitors. And I'm running an inn for visitors. I'll go, well, I need something here where, the visitors could do something on Monday. And so it's really turned into a great series where we have speakers come from all over the Free State, from all over the different affinity groups, to talk about what they're doing and how they're doing it and why it's important, and how you, as a potential free stater, can actually utilize those different techniques to bring in more freedom in the area that you care about most. I highly recommend a visit.
Good commercial. Did a good job. Well, cut that clip out.
Are you ready to move?
I'm already here. I'm the dumb one.
Did I do such a good job that you go, yeah, I'm ready?
I'm the dumb one. I didn't come here for freedom. I came here for love, but
yeah,
I brought
the freedom. Understand why.
I had the bug of freedom was planted in me long ago, and it was really refreshing to get here and find like-minded people. And again, like I said, I was very active in the San Diego Libertarian Party back as far back as like 2013, and we talked about the Free State Project. Some of the guys, a couple of the guys in our group in San Diego, I think we're talking about moving here. I've lost contact with them, so unfortunately. But so I knew.
Well, invite them out. Invite them out. Don't tell them to move here. Just say, hey, you should come out. I got a good deal for you at this inn. It's Free State owned and Free State run, and they have events there. But it's right in the center of all that different activity. Just come out, and we can talk about old times, and you can check out what's happening here, and take it back to California. Well, I always get a kick out of that, because of course California doesn't have the concentration of liberty people. They just don't have, and they never will, because we're too few. The people who can escape the childhood trauma of the indoctrination into believing that we are the own slaves of rulers are very few, very few. If you think about it, we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of years of rulers coming through and killing off people who have those genes. The people who have that recessive gene, and we crop up every once in a while, go, wait, now, why can't I live my life as I choose and not as you telling me to? Those people tend to be fairly few. And those are the people who really will do best in a libertarian homeland. I think that it's a great place for other people. And of course, you can have, we have such a range of liberty people. And as long as you don't feel as though you have to enslave others, we talk about creating covenant communities here all the time, where we have people who have particular preference sets, and they say, oh well, we don't want to be around druggies, and so the idea is, all right, go create a covenant community where everyone agrees to that individually. And people can exit it. They can say, I'm not going to be part of that anymore. Right across, so I started this Shell community clubhouse, but right across the lake behind me here is another community clubhouse, and that is it's a closed community clubhouse. It's a fairly closely held. They do a lot of homeschooling there, so it's open for homeschoolers. But the clubhouse itself is fairly closed. And they're extraordinarily conservative. They do not like the left libertarians. They don't like this libertarian. They don't like that libertarian. And I actually see that as a model for how we're going to be moving forward. We had one clubhouse that I think just bifurcated. It was one of our oldest clubhouses in one of our largest states. And there was a big battle between kind of the more left-leaning and the more right-leaning libertarians about which direction they should go. And finally, they just split. And I, right from the start, I go, why are you guys fighting? Stop fighting. I think you guys on the left should go do your own stuff. You guys on the right just do your own stuff. You don't have to, this idea that we all have to be the same is so imprinted into our brains, when in fact, we're so different. I'm remembering the Monty Python, where the new prophet comes out and he's saying, "You don't have to follow me. You're all different." And the whole crowd goes, "We're all different." And then there's one guy in the middle says, "I'm not."
Life of Brian, it's one of my favorites. That's true, though. Liberty-minded people, whether you want to call them small or libertarians, what have you, they got a few things in common. First of all, they're very well educated on the nature of government and how, basically the government is a monopoly on force in any given area. We agree on things like the non-aggression principle, et cetera. But they're also very ethical people. Mm-hmm. Whether we agree, some of my best friends are anarcho-capitalists, and I tell them, I go, that's a very ethical position to be coming from. But there's bad people in the world that we have got to protect you from. Unfortunately, we need a little more government than the anarcho-capitalists want. But it's a very ethical position. You can't argue with them, and the debates are amazing. But the fundamental truth is, individual liberty, freedom, as you like to talk about. You own your own body, which I think that's a wonderful concept. People should read up on more, because again, that's a very ethical position, because you can't hold that and then try to tell someone else what they can do with their body. And you get a whole community of people like that, and guess what? Everyone gets along pretty well, even if there's some semantical differences. And
Yeah,
some,
I wanted to add to that I think that I actually have, I have a lot of psychometrics in me. So, how to segment people based on their psychology and things like that. And I think that one of the big deciding factors is whether you have an internal locus of control. So, who's in control of your life? If you believe that you are the one who controls your life, who can actually lead your life and control your life, versus you're just, a piece of litter in the wind, and you're buffeted and have no control of your life. And so, the people who I think that liberty really matches people who believe that they have that they own their own selves, that they have their locus of control, that they're the people who control their lives, and they can make a difference in their lives. And if something isn't working in their lives, they can take proactive steps to correct it. And if something bad happens in their lives, they can say, okay, what did I do to contribute to that? Or, how can I change? And now can I do to work around it? I mean, we all have bad things about it. And of course, we'd like to have some great, God government to solve everything for us. But really, so much of this is, what am I doing to create the problem, and what am I doing to get out of the problem? And so that whole idea of an internal locus of control, it's a fairly rare trait. If you look at the traits, I think I've documented about 18 traits that libertarians have to a very high degree, and of course the intersection of those is extraordinarily rare. Each of those elements are fairly rare. And so I think liberty is something, especially if you're growing up in an authoritarian society where we are considered the property of our masters, that we are considered to be, the people, and they give us license. Oh, well, I don't think that you need to protect your body, so I'm not going to give you license to have a gun. And it's like, what are you talking about? I'll protect you. Maybe you will. Maybe after 5 or 6 minutes, and I'm lying in a pool of blood, you'll protect me.
yeah, most dangerous words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Right.
Doesn't work
Right.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at those qualities that liberty people have, kind of on a fairly high level, it really narrows us down, because just for example, in the locus of control example of that one dimension, if you don't believe that you have control over things, you need something else to control the forces that are buffeting you, and that you can't stop, and that you cannot work around, and that you cannot solve. So you find libertarians, and we're going, oh yeah, that's a problem. Let's see how we're going to fix this. How am I going to do? What steps am I going to take? Now I have to tell you, even really good libertarians, when they first move here, they're always kind of looking around. Okay, someone tell me what to do. And I'm saying, what do you mean what to do? We have 300 groups, join one of them, whatever things that you really get excited about, go and help those groups. It might be legislative, it might be actually building something up from scratch. And if it doesn't exist now, start it. As a matter of fact, I just had 2 people query me about starting 2 new groups. That they one is Catholic Free Staters, and what was the other one that came through? Oh shoot! Anyway, so we're always having these little subdivisions and subgroups talking about their specific types of interest, and working together and acting together. You talked about our calendar, and our calendar is packed full. There's hardly a day that has nothing in it. But those are just general admission events that are open to everyone. When you move here, you belong to all these different groups, and so the groups themselves have their own events. and their own meetups and their own meetings and discussions and stuff like that. So it's just amazing the community that you belong to here. You cannot imagine it. And that's why I tell people, come out and experience it. Don't try to pretend like you know what's here. Come and experience it.
Let's close with one of the biggest events, of course, is Pork Fest, this annual event. Last I heard, it's still on for this year. For find a location, has that been taken care of yet? Tell everyone what Pork Fest is, and then what's the update on it?
So Pork Fest is called the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and it's shortened to Pork Fest. And we are scheduled to have, I believe this will be the 23rd Pork Fest. 23rd or 24th. We don't count, well, we count the first one as 0 because we didn't call it Pork Fest, but that's Pork Fest 0. And that was a Pork Fest that we were trying to convince the Free State Project to choose New Hampshire. And so since then, we celebrate in this early summer, this big event, and people come out. I actually, I volunteered, I've gone to probably 9 or 10 of them. I guess 10 of them. I've volunteered for 5 of them, and I've actually been lead for 3.5. I was half lead for one of them, and I redesigned it because my problem with Pork Fest was that it's out in the woods, up in the mountains, at a campsite, and it's absolutely beautiful up in the White Mountains, and you go there, and it's so much fun, but it's a lot of fun. It doesn't actually show you what your life would be like if you were moving here. So actually, when I left organizing Pork Fest, that's when I went and bought the inn, because I was like going, what we really need isn't like this festival that's extracted from our community. It's actually bringing people to see our community. So the Independence Inn is actually a replacement for Pork Fest. But Pork Fest this year, we lost our campground. That we've used for, I think, 12 years now, or 12 or 13 years. We lost our campground. It just was kind of run down and beat up, and people were, let's just say that it wasn't a good situation. And so we've been searching for another campground. That campground, I actually, in December, I gave our chances of actually having a Pork Fest around 10 to 15%. I'm now up to about 75% that we will have a Pork Fest. And I think it will be around the July 4th weekend. So if you love July 4th, and you love freedom, you might want to come out for that. But I highly recommend come out before or stay after and actually experience liberty for real as we live it. I mean, Pork Fest is fun. It's a fun party. When I ran it, we had over 1,000 events over the course of the week, and everything from how to assemble a gun to painting to music things to open jam sessions, to homeschooling talks, to debates. So it was just this smorgasbord of activities of all the different groups. Remember, liberty is a very thin thing. I want to be free. This other guy wants to be free. We may not be the same. I may actually like these things. He may actually like those. Fundamental belief that he ought to be, I believe he ought to be free. He agrees I ought to be free. But we do different activities. And so that's what was happening at Pork Fest. Unfortunately, what happened at Pork Fest also was that, because we were in a single campground, these people would say, those people are doing this thing. I don't like that thing. And these people would say, oh, those people are doing that thing. I don't like that thing. So we had all this squabbling around people doing stuff. And it's like, oh, come on. We get along fine within the Free State just by having our own separate groups and doing our own separate things. So that's the second reason why I think that it's really important to come out here, not just for Pork Fest or Liberty Forum. Liberty Forum's March, I think it's March 5th, and that's more the nerdy festival where we have talks, we have seminars about living in freedom. I mean, they just announced that Scott Horton will be there and stuff like that. So you can come out March 3rd, stay at the Independence Inn. But again, I recommend staying either the weekend before or come the weekend of PorcFest of Liberty Farm and staying afterwards, and actually see what living liberty for real is like in the Free State. And then plan on July 4th being PorcFest. It is more of a rustic feel. A lot of people do camping. Of course, you can stay at the inn. The current location that's being thought of is about a half hour away from the Independence Inn. Remember, I said the Independence Inn is in the middle of nowhere, but the center of everything. So it's actually, I would get my room at the Independence Inn, and then you can shower, you shave, and all that type of stuff, and then go to the campground for the events and stuff like that. But go home to a nice warm bed. We only have 6 rooms at the inn, so those will be gone. But do stay before or after, because I really want you to experience what living here for real is like, as opposed to just coming for an event. Because you go to an event in Baltimore and you stay at the event and you don't go and see. I'm sorry, Baltimore folks, what a hellhole Baltimore is. We have just the opposite problem. You come for an event here in the Free State and you enjoy the event, but you don't see what a blessing it would be like to live here for real in the Free State. So those are the 2 big events that we have. We have other micro events. The best way of finding out about these micro events will be to contact me on X. I'm Dennis, 2 N's, Dennis Pratt, like Pratt and Whitney, Dennis Pratt Free, all one word, at Dennis Pratt Free on X. Contact me and say, hey, I'm interested in the events. I'm interested in coming out and visiting. We currently have 8 of these things. I call them PorcFest 365s because that's actually where I want to move to. I ran PorcFest. I redesigned PorcFest, but I want us to let people know that we're doing PorcFest. We're doing that festival, that festival of all these freedom activities constantly throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. And you come here and you can experience it. So we're going to have events. For example, we're going to have a music PorcFest 365 at the end of March. We're going to have a gamer one in April. We're going to have a number of kids ones. Both people who are planning on having kids. So what is it like to actually have birth and raise your child in the Free State? We're going to have one around schooling kids in the Free State. We have the best freedom education accounts, so you can take the money that would otherwise go to the government school, be wasted in indoctrination, and use it to educate your child the way that you want to see it. And we have another one, which is just that kind of family fun things where you bring your kids. We have a sailing thing. A sailing PorcFest 365. So we have all these different PorcFest 365s throughout the year. I can connect you up with the calendar for those, so you can come if we are hitting a particular interest of yours. One of my interests, for example, is sailing. So we're going to be sailing on a 2-masted schooner, and it's a 5-day sail trip out in
we're going to talk about that offline because I need to get. I'd like to spend some time on the water.
Well, you're gonna need to get your cabin soon because those things do fill up. But I love those trips. That's my love. And I have specific love. So for example, I love sailing. How many sailors do we have here? Within the Free State Porcupine group. Maybe about 30, 20 or so, even though we have thousands and thousands and thousands of Liberty people. And so those 30, we'll actually do events for those 30. And the rest of the people are not doing it. But during that thing, we're going to be talking Liberty and having ancillary Liberty discussions. It's just kind of fun to be out in the Atlantic and the Penobscot Bay, of sailing around these islands and having lobster bakes, and it's just a joy. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of these little things, and the way I design it is the weekend is really kind of at the Independence Inn or at one of our other Liberty community centers. I recommend staying at the Independence Inn because you get the discount. So definitely use that. But where we live, where the inn is you're right in the center of everything. So, but then the actual activities are happening all around it at the various clubhouses. And that's only like a half-hour drive, but that'll happen from Friday through Sunday, and then you're free for the rest of the week to actually go and live like you were a porcupine already here. And schedule meetings. Go schedule a meeting with Brady and say, "Hey, Brady, I really liked when you talked about this, but you were totally wrong about that." And and Brady loves to argue, so yeah, he'll be overjoyed with that discussion. So take him out for a lunch and have discussions, and you can set up a full schedule talking to Liberty people and just having a really enjoyable time about your other interests. Or just come out for a regular porcupine vacation. We'll set you up beforehand. You can meet your affinity group people, in the Signal groups. The application is called Signal. You have to download it. Scary is another group, but it's what we Free Staters are now based on. And meet with those people, and every single person will tell you about what their experiences are, and you can judge for yourself and see for yourself what it's like to actually live in a land of burgeoning freedom.
Very good, Dennis. You sold me. I think I'll stay for a bit. I'll have a bunch of links in the description of this video on my Rumble channel, so people can find everything we're talking about. Dennis, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. We'll do this again, without a doubt, and people come check us out. Until the next time.
Bye-bye.